Hello, welcome to Little Smiles Basic 1 online tutorials. Today's tutorial is on English language, taken from strand 6, using writing convention or grammar usage. Substrand 3, using qualifying words, that is adjectives. Indicator 1. Identify adjectives and use them to describe self and other people. You are to identify adjectives and use them to describe self and other people. In today's lesson, we are going to look at adjectives or qualifying words or describing words. What is an adjective? An adjective is a word used to describe a noun or a pronoun. It is also used to point out a person, animal, place, or a thing. An adjective is used to describe a noun or a pronoun. What is a noun? A noun is a name of a person, a place, animal, or thing. And it is also used to point out a person, animal, places, or thing. So we are going to look at the different types of adjectives and how they are used in pointing out nouns. Adjectives can be a color. Adjectives can be a color. Example: red, blue, yellow, white, green, black. All these are adjectives and they are colors. All colors are adjectives. Now let's look at this poster here. We have 3 cars here. We have red, we have blue, we have yellow. And without adjectives, you cannot point out to any of them. But if I ask you to point to the red car, you point to the red car. Because red is the adjective describing this car. When I ask you to point out to the blue car, you point out to this and not this, because blue is describing this car. When I ask you to point out to the yellow car, you point out to this because it is pointing out to this yellow car. Examples of sentences: a red car. Red is what? An adjective. A blue pen. Blue is an adjective. A yellow dress. Yellow is an adjective. Now, we know that colors point out to nouns or pronouns. So it is what? An adjective. In a sentence, when you see color in a sentence, it is an adjective. Let's look at other types of adjectives. Adjectives can be a shape. Adjectives can be a shape. Examples of shapes are square, round, triangle, rectangle, oval, etc. Now let's look at this diagram. We have 2 tables here. One is a square table, one is a round table. So if I ask you to point out to the round table, you point out to this instead of this, because this is what? A round table. If I ask you to point out to a square table, you point out to this table, because this is what? A square table. Let's look at a few examples of sentences. A square table. So square here is an adjective. A round ball. Round here is what? An adjective. And over here is what? An adjective, because square, round, and over are describing the nouns here, or they are pointing out to the nouns here. Let's look at another example of an adjective. Adjectives can be a height. Adjectives can be a height. Example, tall or short. Tall or short. Let's look at this diagram. We have two trees here. One is tall, one is short. As soon as I ask you to point to the tall tree, you point to this tree, because this tree is taller than this tree. As soon as I ask you to point to the short tree, you point to this one instead of this, because this tree is short. So, example, a tall man. Tall here is pointing out to the man or describing the man. Tall is an adjective. A short boy. Short here is an adjective describing the boy. Let's look at another example of adjectives. Adjective can be a size. Adjective can be a size. Example, big, fat, slim, thin, small, huge, etc. All these are what? Adjectives. Let's look at this picture here. We have two girls here. One is fat, the other one is slim. If I ask you to point out to the fat girl, you point out to this. Because this girl is fatter than this girl. If I ask you to point to the slim girl, you point out to this. Because this girl is slimmer than this girl. Let's look at few examples of adjectives that concern sizes. Example, a fat hen. A fat hen. Fat here is an adjective because it is describing the hen. A slim girl. Slim here is an adjective because it is describing the girl. A small cat. Small here is an adjective because small is describing the cat. Let's look at another type of word. Adjective. Adjective can be a length. Adjective can be a length. Example, long or short. Long or short. Let's look at these two objects here. One is longer than the other. So when you are asked to point to the long bar, you point to this bar because this bar is longer than this bar. When you are asked to point to the short bar, you point to this and not this because this is shorter than the top bar. So long and short are adjectives. Let's look at an example in sentence. A long bus. A long bus. Long here is an adjective because it is describing the bus. A short van. Short here is an adjective because it is describing the van. We have few examples. Adjective can also be age. Age. An example is an old man, a young girl. Old, young, and a lot of them concerning age are all adjectives. They can be used to describe nouns. Weight. Weight also is an adjective. Example of words used under weight are heavy, light, etc. A heavy load. A light bag. Heavy and light are examples of weight. Now, children, with this explanation, you now know the different types of adjectives that we have. Below this tutorial, download this exercise. Answer them and submit for marking in the school premises. Until then, until our next tutorial, is bye-bye.